I'm going to do a video of my face so that I can always remember the day that I looked like this. And so, what the hell is this? What is that shiny thing? There's nothing shining. It's super distracting. What is that? I don't know what that is. But anyway. So, there is more to the story. So, I think that if you were to think about everything in existence as being like a certain size, let's say it's this bottle, then there must be something else that exists just outside of it. So let's say this is being, right? Then nothing must be just outside it. Because if this is everything, then anything else must be nothing. And yet, you've got everything touching nothing. How can that be possible? You can't have nothing touch everything. There can't be any connection. So then there has to be this skin, this bottle glass skin that holds everything, which would then be the beer, inside the bottle. And then you've got nothing, which is the air that's just outside of it. So that's a full system. You have to have at least three. So everything in my theory is all about threes because of that. Because if you have just two things, then you've got everything touching nothing. It can't be done. Another thing is P is not Q. It doesn't make sense that you could say what something is based purely about what you're negating that it is not. In other words, I learned nothing about whiteness from the negation of blackness, because I can just take whatever it is that was black away, and then the blackness goes away with it. And so then there's nothing there, which is completely different than what white is, which is the presence of something that's the opposite of black. So I learned nothing about whiteness from removing blackness. I learned nothing about what something is by defining what it is not. But if I can isolate what is and what is not into a necessary dichotomy, a necessary binary, then I know that whatever it is not must determine what it is. But that presumes that I already know what it is, or what it could be. And that negating it is just simply negating another possibility. But I already had a definition of what it was to be that thing. So it's a given. But in order to derive what something is, you can't derive it from something that it is not unless you have a field that has a necessary dichotomy at that position. If it's not necessary, you won't learn anything about it. If it is necessary, you already know. So there's not really a way of doing that. So my theory always has the three, not two and not one. So when I say that there is a totality of all the time that ever existed, past, present, and future, it's equivalent to saying that there's a totality of all space, like we just presented. And the same three-dimensional system would have to apply. So yeah, you could say that there's all of time. But then that totality has to exist within some bottle, has to exist within some area that has boundaries. And that definition is what gives us the ability to say whatever it is that's contained within that definition. But the definition even is just a pointer. It just points at something. Like words, it represents something, but it isn't the thing itself, and can't be, in the same way that the bottle can't be the same thing as the beer. So, or the air outside of it. I mean, if it were, then it wouldn't be drinkable. It wouldn't be a beer. It would be, it's mixed in with the air. I'd be breathing it in or something. So it doesn't matter what totality that we consider. All totalities have that same three-dimensional system as necessary, except for God, because God exists, or not exists. God is outside of all of that. So this three-dimensional system that I keep mentioning about totalities are totalities within creation and including creation. Creation is all of reality. The totality of reality is creation. And that is God's alone. And God is totally outside of creation. And therefore, we don't learn anything about what God is by studying creation directly. What we learn about is what God is not. And then we infer or imply what God is based upon the information that we learn about creation, which is what God is not. So we can learn about God through creation, but it's not direct. It's not as if to say that God is creation, and by studying creation that we'll have a direct connection with God that way. That's not the case. God is independent of creation. So we don't necessarily learn about God by learning about creation. But we can take creation into account, and it furthers our specificity about what God could be like in a way that we can understand. But it doesn't mean that that's all of what God is. So, for example, God is someone who believes that infinite cost is worth it. We know that because we know what it costs for existence to exist. There has to be an infinite amount of non-existent nothing, for example, for everything. For every bottle of beer, there has to be an infinite, vast array of empty bottles. For every full bottle of beer, there is an infinite number of empty bottles, because they could never have existed. They don't get chosen out of all the infinite array of possibilities. It was just this one that got chosen. This is the only one that got chosen for this particular exact moment in time. And the rest of those may never even get drunk. Maybe I'll drop one on the floor and it'll shatter. Or maybe I'll give one to a homeless guy on my way home. Who knows? And why did I get that particular set? Why wasn't it something else? Don't know. So that's how we learn about God, is that God allows all of this. So then we learn, okay, then God must not be, either God is not rational, meaning that God would be crazy, or it means that God is doing something that we can't rationalize, but that would make sense, but isn't so truncated and condensed as to be called something as barbaric as rational. It's so transcendent to that you can't fit it within the normal human realm of rationalization. So God is someone that we learn about indirectly from creation. Not directly, but indirectly. And you can, because like I said, the more that you learn about that, the more that you go, oh my God, God is seriously caring, because he puts all of that energy into all of that stuff, and 99.99% of it doesn't even get to exist. It's just scaffolding. It costs that much. It's like the coding on the back end in the software took fucking years to be able to put all that stuff together. But you can play it for 5 minutes. You can play it for however long you want, but it took years and hundreds of people directly coding all day long. They had to get degrees. Their parents had to raise them well. The bank had to be functional enough for them to be able to get a loan to pay for their bills, etc. There's so much that goes on with it that at the end of it, you end up causing everything in existence caused this game to come out. Everything in existence is equally causally related, because their parents had parents all the way back to the beginning, and they exist within a framework of other people who also exist. Farmers who had to farm for their food that they got to eat that day. Bankers who had to account for all the money that they made at their work, customers who bought things from their work to keep the work going, etc. And you get through all of that, and eventually you end up implicating everybody in the entire world and every world in existence, and even God himself gets implicated at the end of the day. So it's like, is God evil or is God good? And that's how you look at existence too. It's all wrapped up in the same question. If you say, yeah, I would go ahead and eat the meal, even though everybody else is starving, I wouldn't be so guilty as to say, I'm going to refuse this meal. I'll be humble enough to admit that I'd like to eat. Sure. Thank you. And be, appreciative of that. Acknowledge that, yes, it does cost that much, but at least I got to eat. At least somebody got to eat. And I value myself, and so then, cheers. But we have to keep that in mind also, because God does. God sees all of that stuff get thrown away. And most of us that do exist don't even appreciate it, don't even know. Does a rock know that? Does a tree know that? There sure are a lot of those. They don't even know. But that's what it costs to make them exist too. Same thing with the stars in the sky. They all cost an infinite number of other stars. That's an infinite number, another infinite number, another infinite number, another infinite number, an infinite number of times. And you're talking about infinity and times infinity times infinity. It's like, it's insane. The amount of cost that it takes to generate a single success. It's just insane. It's crazy. But, you have to get behind it. Because if you don't, what else is there? It's just a crime that no one's paying for, or God's paying for, I guess. And we're all just freeloaders. Or, we appreciate it. And we say, thank you, God. There was something that paid the bill that I couldn't. And as much of a freeloader as I am, and as a sinner as I am, I can at least appreciate what it is not to sin, and know that too, and try to reflect at least some of that, occasionally. Even when I'm drunk off my ass, thank you, God, for allowing me to get drunk today. I rather enjoyed it. Thank you. Did I enjoy it as much as the infinite number of me's that never got to drink that beer suffered from not having it? I mean, one of them, that's bad enough, but then you multiply that one guy that didn't get to drink this beer tonight, and you multiply that by an infinite number of selves that didn't get to drink that. That's a massive fucking hole, man. It's really weird to think about. That's the fucking bill that God has to foot for me to get mine, and for you to get yours, and them to get theirs. And it's like, that's who God is. It's the one that would still pay that bill, even if we don't, even if we can't, no matter how many of us there are. So there is a bright side to all the nihilism that I had brought to the table before.